Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. Today I have a special guest, Mr. Julian Walter from JWH Group. Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Cool. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on, mate. JWH Group, mate, they're one of the biggest building groups in Western Australia. Originally started by your father. Big story, that one. Yeah. 1983 he did it, yeah. How does it feel to be at the helm of something like that nowadays? I think you're a general manager partnership with your sister, is that right?
I am, yeah. My sister and I both entered the business at different stages, but we've been working together for quite a few years now, and we sort of see ourselves as the yin and the yang, which works well. And we still every now and again get to have a bit of a Barney like a brother and sister can,
as you do.
But it's actually really surreal. I think I've been in the business for about 15 years now, so. Been doing it for a while. A lot of the people I've actually grown up with even before I entered the business. And yeah, you do sort of have your surreal moments where I don't see it as a big business. To me, it's a company, it's a family business, all that kind of, you get to know the people. But yeah, sometimes it's not until people sort of say, oh, this is how big you are, or these are the numbers and stuff, that you go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I guess it is pretty big. Yeah.
How many houses do you think you build a year across the full brands?
Oh, we tend to sort of sit somewhere around 1,000 homes. Around 1,000 to 1,200 homes a year. But again, it's funny, we don't think about it too much. Like we have like budgets and all that sort of stuff like any business would, but I don't ever recall anywhere on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard, like, you know, on a big wall in the office or anything, ever sort of saying, you know, we're going to build like this many homes a year. I think it really just sort of, for us, it more comes down to like, this is what the sort of homes we'd like to build. This is the different styles and the brands and all that kind of thing, and you just sort of hope that people like what you do. And as it turns out, there seems to be quite a few people who like what we do, how we do it, and the finished result. Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you a little bit there then, because you're building between 1,000 and 1,200 homes a year. Let's say over 10 years you're building 15,000 houses. Yeah. So you've probably helped house, but over the lifespan of, since your dad started the building company, let's say 50 to 100,000 houses. Yeah. That's pretty incredible when you think about that, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And it's, I think with some of our brands as well, I mean, you know, 10 to 15 years ago, I was standing in a Plunkett home. A couple walked in, just said, hi, how you going? Welcome to one of our display homes. And they said, oh, you know, great, just want to have a look around and stuff. And I said, oh, have you been in a Plunkett home before? And he goes, oh, well, actually, I grew up in a Plunkett home, and my grandparents built a Plunkett home. And that's when you sort of sit there and go, oh, yeah, okay, wow. So you've sort of got this generational thing happening, which is pretty cool. And that's what you see with that sort of time frame. And then the other thing that's kind of cool is every now and again with some of our brands, we'll see these inquiries come through where, we had this couple or this family who they missed out. They wanted to buy one of our Oswald Homes display homes, and they missed out, and she was sort of devastated. It was in Applecross. And then they ended up about a couple of months later buying another house in the area, a bit older, and they decided to put a pool in the backyard. They went and got a copy of the plans from the council, and they realised they'd bought an Oswald home, albeit an older one. And so the same sort of thing. She was like ecstatic because she goes, oh, I always wanted an Oswald home. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you got one, albeit not a new one, but call it a second-hand one. That's still pretty good. So yeah, it's sort of weird how that kind of thing happens, and that's, I guess, what's part of the excitement of what we do when you realise you're evoking that kind of thing. And even, you know, for my own benefit or ego, I get a bit of a kick every now and again when I'm driving around on certain streets or whatever, and I go, oh yeah, actually I remember when we built that house, yeah. And you know, you see the family out the front, you know, mowing the lawn, kicking the footy or something like that, and you go, cool, we kind of got to do that, and that's contributing to that neighbourhood, and those people look happy, and that's cool. That was going to be my next thing, because you're not just building houses, you're building homes that people create memories in, and families, and when you're driving past and seeing them outside kicking the footy and having family times and stuff like that. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can sort of ask anybody, to go back into their memory and think about the first home they lived in, second, third, however many homes they've lived in, and memories and stuff. And it's even like one of the first homes I lived in, because I got the benefit of living in a few homes, being the son of a builder. And I still remember one house where we had like this hallway, and then it kind of came into the freeform living, and there was this plinth which the fireplace sat on. And my sister used to run down the hallway to like breakfast or dinner or whatever, and you'd kind of cut the corner as sharp as you could, and every now and again you would just knock your toe on the plinth and it would hurt like hell. and you sit there and that's just a memory I have of that house. And just little things like that. Like, it's not just the big occasions, it's the the familiar sounds or something that houses might make because of a creaky door or whatever. And then there's that flow-on effect, and we even see that when people come to us, is the moment they sort of sign up or they're starting their build journey, they've already started mentally creating memories. They're already picturing like, oh, it's going to be so good when I can watch the footy on a Saturday arvo and in here, and I want to put a TV in the alfresco because I want to be able to have my mates come around for a barbecue and all that kind of thing. Or like people just thinking, oh, we're going to have this ensuite and it's going to be incredible, and I'm going to take long baths, and it's just my life is just going to be absolutely better. And it's exciting that people are that excited with the product of what we're doing. Yeah,
absolutely. And all them things that you talked about there, having the beers with the guys and having long baths, that's what people do look forward to, because the better the house is, the better the quality of life is, and the more memories they can create as well.
Oh, absolutely. And we sort of saw that change a bit as well with COVID, where I think some people thought homes were going to all of a sudden drastically change. And, we're getting asked like questions from, media and all that kind of thing, like, oh, what do you think is going to happen now? And it's like, well, not a lot. People are still going to go to bed, cook in the kitchen, go to the toilet, need a shower. So I don't think like houses were radically going to change, but we did see all of a sudden, like people didn't just necessarily associate their home as being like for them to live in away from work. All of a sudden, work very much came to home.
Yeah.
And that was probably, I think, probably one of the more confronting things, because as much as, everyone loves that, like that idea of work-life balance and all that kind of thing, all of a sudden it was like, I've now got work in my house physically, and I have to grapple with that. And that was a big reality for a lot of people.
It can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think when it's forced upon you, it can be a bad thing. But if it's the option to work hybridly, like half at home, half in the office, it can be a good thing. Some of our team do that. Right?
Oh, and that's the thing. And I think that, to me, it wasn't, it probably sounded like I mean it as a bad thing, but I think the exciting thing I saw with that was all of a sudden, Enooks had been this thing trending in homes, and all of a sudden people were just like, okay, Enooks are the worst idea ever. Like, if you're going to work from home, to kind of be planted in a hallway with like a bench and a basic seat is like the worst way to work. And all of a sudden, you saw like in design and everything, people like, okay, I want my study and I want it to have lots of natural light. I want a big window and all that kind of thing. And people started thinking, oh, and I'm going to actually probably have to work at times at home with my spouse or my kids or something like that. So they wanted their study to be a bit more meaningful in terms of the size and the layout and the orientation of it. And then, like I guess a lot of things in COVID, like everyone kind of got a bit obsessed with indoor plants and stuff. So you sort of saw the study no longer be this space where, I think before that, if people had them, they were kind of like a dumping ground.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're like, no, if I'm going to work from here like a couple of days a week, and even now they do, people, I really want to, I want to actually have like a little garden or something outside, or I want to have like, good airflow. And I even like noticed, a person said to me, one thing they noticed with working from home was they're working in their study, they've got fresh air coming in, because most offices, they're sealed.
Yep.
And all of a sudden people are like, it's actually really nice because you're actually in a room with fresh air, which is ventilated and stuff, and you're going, oh, okay, hadn't even thought of that. And that's a cool thing. So it's interesting.
Absolutely. I want to come back to the way that people are changing the way they live. I know that the style of housing is generally the same thing, but the way we change, I want to come back to that in the future. But I want to take people through the journey of how this company evolved. So obviously Dad Julian started it back in 1983. Yep. I was actually 1 year old then.
Yeah, right. Okay.
How old are you?
So I'm 37, so I wasn't actually
you
born.
You weren't even born?
I wasn't even born yet. No, I think my daddy started it, and I think the market in Perth wasn't in great shape. my mum was pregnant with my sister, and, you know, I think other pivotal things, you had like the America's Cup going on. You know, it's the Bond era. And then, you know, Dad decided to start a building company, and I think it was quite a crazy idea. And, you know, I think my takeaway from that, you know, having heard Dad share the story, and, you know, as you get older, your parents start telling you more stories about, you know, when you were young that you didn't quite realise. But my takeaway from how he described to me is his idea had just the right level of crazy to it, that he had a lot of pressure on him, had a family to support and all that kind of thing, but the right level of crazy where it could actually work, and he had enough pressure on him to keep him motivated and all that kind of thing. So I think, you know, I like to think that my sister being born put a lot of pressure on Dad to kind of kickstart the business. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely got to be grateful for that.
And it was originally called J Corp.
Yeah. So I'll tend to joke with people and say that he named the business after me, but no such thing. And yeah, he ran that for a number of years, and then he ended up in a partnership with Len from BGC, and I think at the time they both had a lot of respect for each other and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And then I just think in life and business sometimes you just start to go different ways. So that led to them publicly splitting, and J Corp remained with BGC and sort of got absorbed into that. And then he went out on his own again and started JWH Group. Right. And we retained some of the brands, and some of those brands like the Rural Building Company, Residential Attitudes, Oswald Homes, they were very much a part of that. So all our brands have sort of got a fair bit of tenure. There's none of them are teenagers anymore. Yeah. They're all quite established and
all grown up.
Yeah, fair bit of history. And I kind of see our brands as like this family of building companies, and they've all kind of got their quirky little personalities. And as a client or a punter or whoever you are wanting to build a home, it's almost like you're trying to identify with the family member that best suits you. Yeah. And, you know, whether it's a rural home or an Oswald home or a Plunkett home or whatever it is. And that's kind of like how we sort of see our brands, as this family of brands.
The brands like your kids.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through the names of them now.
Yeah.
We've got Residential Attitudes,
yep.
Oswald Homes, WA Country Builders, the Rural Building Company, In Vogue, Metro Style, New Level Homes, Residential Builder WA, and Plunkett Homes, which is the interesting one because Plunkett Homes has actually been around since 1903, I think you said earlier.
Yeah. So she's an oldie. Yeah. Oldest building company in Western Australia, and one of the oldest in Australia. So yeah, we had a bit of a historian who's a friend of Dad's who's doing some research and everything, and I think it was either last year or the year before, they actually found some original records where, as much as we've been thinking it was 1903, there's reason to believe it might have been 1901. Yeah. So it could even be older, but yeah, and it's a company that it was owned by the Plunkett family for generations, and then I think they just got to a point where they weren't sure if they wanted to keep running a building company or owning a building company. And I guess there was a connection to Dad. So strangely enough, like Dad had started his career in the industry and worked at Plunkett Homes. Both my sister and I, when we entered the group, we both started our careers at Plunkett Homes. So yeah, there's a sort of that connection, and Dad still knew quite a few people. There's actually a funny story. My first day I worked at Plunkett, I was waiting in the reception for the general manager to come out and see me, and this guy walks past. Called Pete O'Donnell, and he'd been there for a long time, and he walked out and took a look at me and he goes, "You must be a Walter." And I was like, yes I am, yep. How did you know that? And he goes, because you got the same dopey look your father had when he started here. And I was like, okay. He was an absolute character, but it was funny how there's a few people in the business 15 years ago who had actually been at Plunkett that long that they were like, I remember when your dad worked here, a couple of decades before that. Yeah. So the history in that business is just phenomenal.
Yeah. And do you feel that there's pressure on you to maintain that history and keep it moving and keep that sort of family feel about it as well?
Oh, absolutely. History, tenure, it's an incredible thing, but with that comes a sense of responsibility and pressure. You don't want to be the person who ruined its reputation.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you maintain that level of integrity and stuff. And I think that's where, even with staff that we've got in the business now, we actually kind of do that, kind of similar to how cultures do it, which is through storytelling. So there's a lot of history, there's a lot of stories that we share with staff around the history of Plunkett and how that ties in with our values and stuff and how we live and breathe it. And it's how that business forged a really strong reputation for always trying to do the right thing, looking after not just clients but staff and all that kind of thing, and it's subcontractors and that. So there's lots of sort of stories that we weave into the business, and I think that's one. There's a lot of the staff. You've got people like, I remember like one of the girls who we work with, and she's a new homes administrator, and she pre-started her first client at Plunkett when she'd sort of started with us. And I happened to see her in the office, and I said, how's your day been? She goes, good, I had my first pre-start today. I was like, good, how'd that go? She goes, good, I've made my history, I've pre-started my first Plunkett home. And I was like, okay, cool, and stuff.
Nice.
And it wasn't until later that I kind of thought, actually, that's kind of cool that's like she sees that as a bit of history. So there's little things like that which make it a pretty cool business.
And that's kudos to the team as well, because they've obviously instilled that belief into that girl that this is like a milestone in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the culture in the business must be incredible, is it?
Yeah, it's there's kind of like that element of tribalism that comes with it. There's a big wall, and it sort of is like that certainly wouldn't have been around in 1903, but there's a thing called like hashtag Plunkett Proud. So they've got that, and it's like a WhatsApp group which the staff are all on, and a lot of sharing of photos of clients and being out on site with trades and all sorts of stuff, even just the simple things of office banter and that. And it's that kind of thing that just makes it a nice place to work. And I'm biased, but it's pretty cool. And I think that's what actually gives us that end result of building a good home. There's a real sense of pride in that, and I do think when you're a part of that, it does permeate where everyone starts to feel a sense of responsibility. Yeah. So it keeps everyone accountable in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, we've just been through what's been probably the toughest 2 years the building industry's ever faced. Would you agree there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my 15 years, I've been around the industry my whole life. There's a moment where you're a bit nervous. It was not long ago. I was with Dad. Another stalwart in the industry was Gary Brown-Neves, and I was also bumped into a few times with Peter Stannard. These are guys who have been in the industry for a long time. Yeah. They've seen some things, and when you sort of speak to them and they talk about it being the toughest thing they've ever been through in the industry, your heart flutters a little bit, because you're just like, okay, so it's not just me. Yeah. These guys have seen some stuff. They've really grueled through the industry, and yeah, so when they're saying it definitely means something. So yeah, it has been, the last couple of years definitely been tough.
So we had the pandemic kick in, then we had the government trying to stimulate the economy with the building grants, which was really just the straw that brought the camel's back, wasn't it? It just caused carnage.
There's so many ways to describe it. I think, drinking out of a fire hydrant with a straw. I feel as though, they kind of gave the industry a couple of shots of coffee, Red Bull and a can of Coke. It's sort of weird. Like, we knew, obviously everyone had to prime their industry, and construction employs a lot of people, massive flow on effect. They did the modelling. I think, as a government, they always do their best, and I don't think, you knew that the stimulus was going to do something. I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams imagined the take-up. And then it's when you're then also looking globally and realising that it's not just Australia that's done this. I'd read something that like the pipeline in Australia of housing was like 220,000, which is a lot across Australia. And then the pipeline in the US was 11 million. And you're sitting there going, okay, so everyone kind of just got excited. And then how do we do this? It's like, let's just all build stuff. And like, everyone just kind of, whereas usually, like, a lot of people don't realise, like, building across the world or in Australia for that matter, it's usually a little bit counter-cyclical across the place. So, it's a bit crazy.
So we had everyone at the same time, all doing the same thing, all need materials, all needing labour.
Yeah.
Shipping costs went through the roof.
Yep.
Couldn't get supplies.
Trains derailed. You've got, countries in war, which affects supplies. And I don't think, I did economics at school and in year 10, and I think like one of the first things I learned about economics is like, demand and supply, but then also like, globalization is good. And I was sort of like joking with some of my mates. I was saying, are they now teaching in economics that globalization is bad? Because I think we've learned that like everyone trying to do this and is going to cause a lot of problems. So, yeah, and it was just sort of unheard of. I mean, I spoke to one client where we said, the train line's down and all that sort of stuff. And he's just like, what do you mean the train line's down? How do train lines get down? And I was like, well, they just go down, and that's just what's happened. And he goes, do you mean to tell me there's only one way to bring materials into this state? And I was like, yeah, as it turns out, there is. And it's just like, well, I don't know how many train lines we're going to have coming into WA, but I think and it is what it is, but it almost became like a comedy of errors.
It's not like you can just chuck another train line in, though, is it? I mean, it's a pretty big span across the Nullarbor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think, like, at one point someone goes, can't they just chuck it on a plane? And I was like, well, I think of the fact that I pay a penalty if I put, 2 kilos more on my luggage, and I can only imagine how much timber weighs per se compared to... So I don't think it's as simple as putting it on an aeroplane. I think it's... Along the way, it's probably provided some very interesting insights for everybody into, as modern as this world is, there are still some very traditional things that are occurring, which is like we load up trains with carriages with timber and we transport it across the country, and there's one train line. And, you grew up, watching comics or something where, that was the dynamite on the train line. And it's just like, yeah, well, we're learning just how serious that is now. Yeah. So, yeah.
How did you... I'm guessing you got a pretty big team across all the brands. How big's the team?
So we're around... I think that the number probably fluctuates, but it's about 350 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 350 people that are all on salaries, getting paid every single month. We've got this influx of building grants and everybody signing build contracts, which on the outset looks good.
Yeah.
You builders must be killing it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people needed slabs pouring before a certain deadline so that you get access to building grants. As a builder, you only get paid for the work that gets done on site. So you pour a slab, you send the invoice to the client sends it to the bank pays you. Then you're kind of stuck there, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Over East, Western Australia was being called Slabageddon.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Because we just had all these vacant slabs all over the place, apparently.
Oh, it definitely... in some estates, at some point, it looked a bit apocalyptic. There was just... To the point that, I think builders sometimes joke with clients about, when your slabs pour, make sure you go to a slab party and all that kind of thing. And I think if you'd gone to some estates and asked everyone to coordinate their diaries and do their slab parties, it would look like Woodstock. It just would have been mental. So, yeah, it was... the pressure that we were under to deliver, because you're talking a lot of money for people, so you had to get that down straight away. You've got people as well. Like the people in our team, they're real people, so they're putting in some insane hours because the competitive edge sort of kicked in. Is that we kind of sort of almost like this chant of like no one gets left behind. So we did not want to miss anybody missing out on their grant, and you had that deadline. At the same time, you're trying to act really responsibly with how much work. And I remember like Terry, our group building manager, when they first announced the stimulus, we had like this management meeting with about half a dozen of us, and we're talking about just what the stimulus was going to do, and the fact that overnight inquiry had just exploded. And Terry, who's been with us for a long time, he's like his family for us, and he just said, it doesn't matter how many you sell, it's going to come down to how many can you actually build. And he said the one question that this industry can't answer right now is how many homes can it produce. And I think that's where some of these challenges we've seen has partially been compounded by the fact that everyone sold a lot of houses, but no one really knew how many they could build.
Yeah.
And no one probably necessarily appreciated with their trade base and suppliers and all that kind of thing that they were servicing multiple people. So, it's not uncommon for your trades to work for a few different builders.
Yep.
So when they're saying, oh, well, we'll take that bricklayer and we'll just put him on our job full time, he might be working with 3 different builders, and all 3 builders are saying the same thing. Yeah. He's one guy.
Yeah.
There's only so far you can stretch him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
So it must have put a lot of stress on the company then to have, on average, 350 people, slabs being poured, and then nothing else really happening because we couldn't get supplies.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Oh, I mean, you got to, I guess you keep calm. My sister and I, we pretty much talk daily. And I think you sort of have to act responsibly, and that's how we sort of, I mean, I go back to that point around it's how many you can build, not how many you can sell. So we put caps in and measures and all that kind of thing to, I guess, slow that down and only take on what we could handle. But from our point of view, we had a lot of worries around the people in our team. Years ago, my dad said to me, don't worry too much about the housing and all that kind of thing. There's a whole army of people in the business who worry about that. Worry about the people. So if you worry about the people, they will worry about the housing, and it will sort of take care of itself. So
wise.
There's a lot of conversations that you sort of, you're wandering around, you're talking to people, whether it's through text message or on the phone, face to face, whatever it could be. But we try to really manage those workloads. I think, to be honest, it's sort of this melting pot of challenges and issues where you've got people who are still stressed out about COVID. People don't want to get COVID.
Yeah.
People don't want to be sick. They don't want to know the effects of it. At the same time, there's a high level of anxiety around family and friends they can't see. They're reading a lot of stuff in the news. So you've got people that are dealing with a higher level of anxiety. At the same time, you've got clients who really want to be, building. They want to see activity and all that kind of thing. So in terms of like managing it and stuff, I think really you're sort of just trying to stretch out that pipeline and show people like it's like eating an elephant. You can't put the whole thing in your mouth. You just got to have one bite at a time. Yeah. And I think once we sort of started to stretch that out a bit, it started to go okay. But admittedly, when we did have to restrict some of the work we took on. So we did cap out sales.
That was going to be my next question, actually.
Yeah.
Which is hard when you've got the machine that you've got, because obviously when you've got that many people, you need sales coming through the door. So you've got a pipeline of work. So do you stop it and then try and revamp it or bring it back online in the future, or do you just turn it down a little bit?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. I think something that's come out of this is a lot of people don't actually understand how building companies actually work. I mean, going back to your point before, you've got to get your slab down, all that kind of thing, and you're paying a lot of money out. Like, a lot of people think like, you're paying your deposit, you're paying your slab down, all that kind of thing, but a lot of people don't quite realise at that point, the builder is actually still out of pocket. They might be charging for things, but everything that they're outlaying, whether it be to staff, to the local council for permits, all that kind of thing, initially your trades who are still working on the job, some of your contractors like engineers, all that kind of thing, you're actually outlaying a lot of money.
Yep.
And then building companies are kind of like, for lack of a better way to describe it, are like a sausage factory where you need to keep feeding the machine.
Yep.
So any kind of gap or anything like that where you stop and start something, it will actually disrupt the machine. So people want to sort of see this continuity of work. And that's where we had to really look at our machine, our building machines, and go, we've got to keep these things humming as efficiently as possible. So anything that's going to disrupt that. So obviously, you feed it through carefully. Don't just ram everything in. That's just going to block it up. But then in terms of the type of work and everything, I think a luxury you kind of got to be given for a while is you could put some restrictions in place. So we very much tried to limit changes that people could make, some of the home designs, the complexity, all that kind of thing, where we'd actually been coming off the back of a very competitive market where builders were taking on all sorts of weird and wonderful work because it was so competitive.
Quiet, yeah.
It was quiet. You
Yeah.
need to keep people busy somehow. So all of a sudden you're like, hey guys, all that stuff you're able to do before, you can't do that anymore. It's just going to be really simple. And I think like some customers were a bit annoyed about it, but you're sort of sitting there going, I'm acting in your interests. The more efficient it is, it's kind of like, It's like if I go to McDonald's and I order like a standard cheeseburger or something, chances are I can get it in and out very quick.
Yeah.
But if I go in there and say, hey, I want a cheeseburger, but I don't want you to put the patty in first. I want you to put the cheese in and then the patty, and then I want 2 squirts of tomato sauce, but not 1 pickle. I want 5 pickles. Like, they'll do it, but it's going to slow them down a bit.
Yeah.
And it's that same sort of thing of like going, if you work with us, we'll get you a very good outcome. But if you really, make lots of changes and all that kind of thing, it does make it hard for us to deliver that.
Yeah.
And that's, so that was sort of one of those things where, and then the other thing as well is we had to sort of reduce some of the regions and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, because you cover a vast area, don't you?
Yeah. It's big. Part of
half of WA almost.
Oh, it's a big state. We actually worked it out, and don't ask me how we worked it out, but we years ago worked out that the area that we cover is the size of Spain. So we're building in an area the size of Spain, and Spain's a pretty big country. And with that comes some restrictions and limitations in that we do work on some fairly remote sites. We sometimes are going to properties and everything where there's no driveway access. That needs to be put in with the machinery. We've got no power, so we're running at the very beginning. We're putting a generator in to run all the equipment to build a house, like all the machinery and stuff. And you have some of that. There's actually only a few months ago, it was a funny picture just because of all the rains that had been in the southwest, and we had a brick carter who'd gone to deliver some bricks to this site. The driveway hadn't quite been wide enough. The truck has then slid down and got bogged. They've then tried to unload it with the Manitou that was on it to lighten it up. The Manitou has then got bogged. Wow. And then the tractor has come along to pull that out. And then before you know it, you've got 3 tractors trying to pull this truck out. And it was sort of like, this is just another day.
Comedy of errors.
Yeah. Like of course, why would it all go to plan? And then, so we had to sort of watch some of the places, which was really hard because with our brands that are in the regions, we have a lot of pride in delivering housing range and affordability. So all of a sudden, when there are some of your more remote areas that you all of a sudden say, look, we can't do it, it's hard because those people want to build. On the flip side, the price of building to do that in those remote areas, you're sort of looking at that client and saying, look, if you want my advice, just wait. Just wait. Wait a couple of years and the relief will start to come back again.
Yeah.
So
that's probably a good segue into some of these next questions, because I actually went out to the community that I run and said, what were the biggest builders in WA coming on the show? What would you ask them if you could sit down in front of them? And Adams asked, when do you expect the surge of new builds brought on by the building grants will be finished?
So when it's finished, that's a... So I've just been in the meeting today. So we're finished. Obviously we're always finishing homes. We're very much finishing homes that were stimulus related. So, from our point of view as a group, we've hit our peak with our housing starts, and we're now like in this bell curve sort of pattern where we're starting to see more and more of the homes that we started that are stimulus related start to hand over.
Yeah.
So you're kind of on that that downward curve, which you sort of hope is going to be, by the looks of it at the moment, it's looking like this nice gentle curve, which means that you'll see that momentum come back in and houses will get quicker to build, which is good. And a lot of those issues that we've had are easing, which has been good. So I like to, I think it'll go into next year. Because you still have like a fair pipeline of work. For us personally, we've reached our peak, but I know speaking to some of the other major builders, they've still got a bit to go.
Yeah,
but they obviously took on a fair bit. So, yeah, and sorry, I should disclaim that as well. A number of them did sign up a number of people on blocks that didn't have titles ready. So you've had this massive backlog with delay in titles.
Yep.
So some still haven't peaked because of that backlog, whereas just based on our profile of pipeline that we've got, we've managed to get through a fair bit. So that's a good thing.
And the reason why we didn't have titles is because developers were holding on their land releases because the market was still relatively quiet before COVID kicked in.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. Are build prices stabilising yet? And will we ever see them reduce, or is this the new normal in regards to pricing?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question.
Literally.
Yeah. So we're still seeing some areas of increase come through. It's nothing like it was before, so it does seem to have eased off. I think we've had a bit of a second wind of it, and I think that's partially been due to inflation, and because the whole world is just so overheated. You know, obviously we've got wage growth and all that kind of thing off the back of higher cost of living. I mean, you only have to go into the shops, and I don't know about you, but I've noticed it in my weekly, you know, Woolies food shop, how much it's definitely gone up. So,
and at the Bowser as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I had to.
I close my eyes now.
Yeah, I had to fill up my wife's car the other week, and she drives a Land Cruiser, a big long range tank, and as I was like watching, I was going, "Oh, that's a big number." Yeah. But I think the prices to me are. It's definitely slowed down a lot. I can't. It's one of those things. I mean, no one ever thought bricks were going to get to the price they were going to get to, and bricklayers and all that kind of. And then it did, and you're like, well, okay. So it's sort of famous last word. So you kind of don't want to answer it because you don't want to curse yourself. But it does appear to have slowed a lot. So you like to think it is stabilising. In terms of the reduction in price, I mean, I can't see it reducing for some time yet. And that's just because the cost of manufacturing, transport, like so many things have gone into that surge in pricing. It will take a long time for that to sort of come back again. And it never really comes back to what it was. Nothing has kind of got cheaper. Yeah. So you look at it and go, it sort of is the new norm. And I mean, I've said to people like before, to put in perspective, you know, I'm a builder, you know, in a building company, and my wife and I have entertained building at the moment, and we've said, you know, we could find a good block and all that kind of, we'd be keen to go again. And to me, I've said to people, like, if I'm doing that, that's maybe some level of indication of someone who happens to know a thing or two, or has a bit of an insight or foresight or whatever you want to call it. And if I'm looking at it, then I'm not seeing it getting cheaper. So it's a hard one to answer though.
What about the bottleneck? Because the bottleneck was originally slabs being poured, then it was bricklayers, then it was roof carpenters, then roof cover.
Yep.
Is this kind of indigestion, as you want to call it? It's like sort of travelling through the system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we at internal fixings now? Are we seeing struggles with plumbers? We've got a dog going crazy out there. Are we seeing issues with plumbers and electricians for internal fixings, or have we got so many of them that it's not going to cause a problem?
I think what sort of happened is we've seen the pipeline stretch out a bit. The positive of that is we've got, I think now a lot of people have been able to brace themselves to get ready. You know, when we first sort of started, it was just absolute madness trying to get slabs down. And then it was absolute madness trying to get bricks on site. And there's, you know, and it was all that kind of, and I think over time, as much as people sort of might be agitated with those sort of hold-ups and all that kind of delays, it has actually also allowed for a bit of better digestion of what's that pipeline. So I like to think that we won't see some of those issues. And I think the next thing as well is what was hard is a lot of our roof cover was hitting in winter. So, you know, it's raining, it's, you know, it's wet, it's windy. I mean, it was weeks ago now, but, you know, we'd had a couple of days of good weather. We had, you know, some guys getting back up on the roof and all that kind of thing. And then it just absolutely bucketed and was raining and stuff and windy and all that kind of thing. And, you know, even one of the clients, you know, I bumped into on site, you know, he's having a chat to me and stuff, and he goes, I don't get it, why can't they be out here? And I said, look, mate, I know people who won't even hang their washing out today. Like, why would you want to get up there? We've got a knock health and safety issue there. So that just sort of further compounded it. And now in this, you know, much better weather we're in, that should actually be better, where, you know, the guys are out on the roofs, all that kind of thing. And yeah, you like to think so. It's, I mean, a big part of building is literally the weather pattern. You know, there's a good time to be pouring slabs, there's a good time to be laying bricks, all that kind of thing. I was talking to a Canadian years ago, and he said, we can only build houses 6 months of the year because the snow's that bad.
That's crazy.
And I was like, Jesus, what are you doing? He goes, we just build like buggery. And I was like, fair enough.
Last question from Adam is, what are we seeing in the way of new builds coming through the pipeline? Is there still a volume coming through? Is it dead as a doornail? Is it active? What's happening there? It's surprisingly active.
It's more probably returned to some of the, call it the pre-COVID levels. So it has come off a bit because obviously we don't have stimulus or anything.
Yeah.
But it's a lot stronger, and I'm probably speaking on behalf of a few builders I've also spoken to, like competitors or whatever you want to call them, but it's actually surprisingly still quite buoyant. Whereas our worst fear was it was going to be dead. So it's actually been quite positive. A part of that is, I mean, people are always going to have to build houses. You know, there are people who need to build because they're
huge shortage at the minute, haven't we?
Yeah, like they just need to build. They want to bowl over an old house and then do that. People, you know, like one of my best mates, he's like, I need to build right now because I've got a growing family. I need a bigger house, and I'm looking at real estate, but then I want to live in this house for like 10, 20 years, so I want to build. So you have that sort of thing, and then at the same time, you've also got investors, and the investors at the moment, I mean, if you're someone who's been looking at like investment properties and stuff in Sydney, you compare the prices in Sydney to the prices in Perth.
2 for 1.
And it's just, they're like, wow, this is cheap. And when you sort of then start to go, and this land is within 5 minutes of a beach and 10 minutes within a train line, and that train line will take you into the city in 20 minutes and all that kind of thing. Like, it's just like, oh, wow. And so, you know, and that's Sydney. And then, you know, you speak to some of your international investors, and, you know, if you're talking to an investor who's coming from Singapore or something, you know, they're just going, this is insane how cheap this is. So you're getting that interest from those sorts of people as well. Yeah.
Interesting. Good. That's good to know. For years, we've been building some of the biggest houses in the world, 246 square metres on average, apparently, Australia.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Standard 4x2, 2 people generally live in them, and they've got all these empty spaces. Are we seeing a shift in the way people are wanting to live and what they want from a house now? Are we starting to get smaller designs because the price of them has become so expensive? Are people starting to live differently? Have they got more wants and needs when they're building a house now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we've had this abundance of space. So we had space, we had the ability to, and then we've had urban sprawl, and we're one of the least dense cities in the world. You know, we're up there with LA, and that's a good thing in many ways, but then it's obviously, it gets harder and harder to get around and all that kind of thing. But I think, to me, something I've seen more recently occur is I feel there's a lot more common sense coming into housing. People are probably being, and I don't necessarily know what's responsible for this, but I feel like people are becoming a bit more aware of what they need as opposed to what they could have. And, you know, it was, I mean, having worked in display homes and all that kind of thing, you get people coming in and they're saying, I need to have 4 bedrooms, I need a study, I need a home theatre, I need an activity, tick, 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 tick. And then, I mean, the home theatre to me is just one of the worst things we've ever put into homes. I mean, I kind of call it the winter laundry, because most people end up just hanging all their laundry in winter to dry in their home theatre, or it becomes a dumping room, or, you know, the room where you do the Christmas like wrapping or something like that. And then the 4-bedroom thing, and I don't know if it's because we've just got so many expats here where, you know, you've got people from the UK and South Africa and Ireland and all that kind of thing, but you know, I remember talking to someone and they said, I need a 4-bedroom home. And I said, oh, okay, cool. So how many of you in the family? And they said, I've got 2 kids. And I said, so what's the 4th bedroom for? And I said, oh, we've got family in the UK. I said, oh, okay, how often do they visit? And they said, every 2 years. I was like, oh, okay, and how often, when they come over, how long do they stay with you? And they said, about 1 or 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, so let's work this out numbers-wise. I think it worked out to be about 25 grand. I said, you're going to pay $25,000 for this room for some people who stay with you for about a week every 2 years. Yeah. Like I said, but then you're going to complain about the size of your backyard or your alfresco, or, you know, and I said, if I was you, I would take that room and put it into your, you know, your ensuite, your freeform living, like whatever, like it's not selfish, but like be selfish. Like think of you're living in this house every day. And what we've sort of more seen now is we do see people like doing 3-bedroom homes. I think they're getting less caught up in the real estate thing, which is, unless it's got 4 bedrooms, I'm not interested.
Yep.
I do think people are putting a lot more thought into those spaces as well. And, you know, like, I mean, the kitchen is a real hub of the home.
Yes.
People want that connectivity to their family. I think, you know, even like the island bench is a little bit deeper now, because people, you know, they like that their kids might come home and do their homework at the island bench while they're doing meal prep. You know, a lot of families have solved a lot of problems in the kitchen. So, you know, if there's one thing you can use to solve problems, that's talking it out and eating food. So I think those sorts of spaces become more thought out, and Yeah, and I think that's where people are becoming a bit more sensible with what they're putting into a house. And yeah, and that is definitely a good thing. So, and I think as well, as our market's maturing, we're also seeing is, I mean, my first house my wife and I bought was a 4-bedroom home. There was just us and 2 dogs. We had 3 bedrooms that were empty, and we lived in this house for about 3 or 4 years. And what I did notice that really grated on me was that we had these spare rooms, so we went to IKEA and we bought beds for them. But then we also had to put a doona on it and decorative pillows. And then for about 3 or 4 years, I walked past these rooms every day and just saw these really nice looking rooms, but no one lived in them. And at the end of it, I was like, this is nuts. I should have just lived in like a 2-bedroom apartment or something like that on the beach and enjoyed that lifestyle. And then when I needed a bigger house because I've got kids or whatever, I should have right-sized. So I think that's what we're seeing now. And I think, to be honest, the opportunity that I can see in the market is looking at what is there a lot of and what is there not a lot of, and finding those little pockets and going, well, I'm going to put that there and that there. And, you know, I mean, in the country, in the regions, one of the most popular sort of types of houses we've done is like 2-bedroom units, because you've got so many like workers and all that kind of thing who, you know, in the country you see a fairly transient workforce, big demand for 2-bedroom units. You've actually got a lot of single blokes. So it's interesting when you start to see that stuff go and you see the success of it and you go, okay, so don't just pump out 4x2s, because you'll get like a single person living in that. But chances are, like a dual occupancy house or something like that, that's the way to go. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of it's reading the market.
There's a few things that you've mentioned there. I was also guilty of buying the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with me and my wife and nobody else. I used to look in them bedrooms and go, yep, it's still there. Yeah. And then close it over for another 4 weeks and then check it back out again then. But then we had the theatre room as well, which we used once a month if we were lucky. Yeah. But then we got savvy and we started using them spare spaces as bedrooms and renting them out and making some good money from them. So that's basically how the business was born. Yeah, we bought a 4x2 because people said if you don't build a 4x2, no one's going to buy it later on. Yeah. So we were just like, all right, yeah, we'll build a 4x2. And luckily that was the catalyst to start the business. Yeah, right. Yeah, crazy. And you probably just answered Ankor's question as well there, because he said, what tips do you have for an investor to build instant equity into their new build? And I think that's to kind of build something different to what everybody else is building. Yeah, and I think, you know, like it doesn't have to be crazy or outlandish or anything like that. It's just, it is just sort of like looking at the market. I mean, I like personally, and I've said this to some of the people I work with in the office who are younger people looking to build their first home or buy their first home. And I said, if I had my time, I'll do dual occupancy. You know, for years we've seen people put granny flats in their backyards and rent them out. Dual occupancy is the same thing. It's just under one roof, but it's really clever in that you can have a 3x1 and a 1x1, or you can open or close the door and make it a 4x2. And it's stuff like that where I think, wow, I mean, you know, you could build a 4x2 and as a young single person or a couple or whatever, live in the 1x1, which is like a mini apartment, and rent out the 3x1. And then the moment, you know, you decide to drop a knee and have kids and all that kind of thing, you then go, okay, let's swap and we'll go live in the 3x1 and then we'll do the other side out. And do the other side out. And then, you know, you keep going and before you know it, you've got the whole house full. But the whole way you've sort of been adding that additional income into, and the beauty of a house like that is you've actually still got your own space. Yeah. It's not like you've got some random person living in your house. So to me, that kind of stuff, and even in suburbs as well, like sometimes it is just the 2-bedroom places. A lot of people just want to live in a flat. We're very, you know, I kind of feel as though like we're a generation of people that have been brought up on Monopoly, and all we could think of was hotels and houses, but we sort of forgot along the way that there's units, townhouses, flats, like... I mean, the best example I've ever seen where they explained it was with Coca-Cola, and they said, you know, you go into a Coles or a Woolies or whatever, and you'll see you want a Coke, but you'll walk in and you'll go, it comes in a 275, a 375, a 500, a 600, a 1.25, a 2 litre, you know, a block of vanilla flavour, like sugar free. There's just so many options, and really, it comes down to what do you want at that point in time. And what do you need? And it's like, well, I just want a Coke for me. I'll just buy this one. Oh, and I'm having a party tonight. I'll buy the 2 litre. And I think that's where it's like with housing. It's like getting people sort of thinking. I mean, one of the biggest challenges really with that is stamp duty. But
and that's a different sort of problem. That's where I do think, though, the dual occupancy type stuff is really clever, because you're not going to suffer from stamp duty on that.
Last couple of questions. What is the building industry doing to help encourage apprenticeships? Because we're seeing like an ageing workforce in the way of trades, and not many young kids coming through and becoming bricklayers and sparkies and plumbers. Like, is there anything happening out there that you're aware of that's trying to entice apprenticeships back into this sort of industry?
Yeah, I mean, the government's definitely aware of it. I've been fortunate to sit in some of the roundtables, with the Premier and our Minister and all that kind of thing. And, there's different organisations. I mean, the CTF, the Construction Training Fund, phenomenal organisation, and they are definitely running all sorts of different levels of like subsidies, like apprenticeship type programs. They've done fast track type programs. There's a lot of recruitment drives. There's even just being able to try a trade, because I think there's obviously for some people there's a fear of once they sign up they're stuck, whereas they're like, just try this. And so there is lots of different programs going on. I think a part of it is people actually seeing the opportunity that's there, and that there's going to be, I mean, I think back to when I was young. I mean, I wasn't necessarily thinking of the most responsible questions of what to do with my career. I was probably more worried about what I was going to be doing on the weekend. Yeah. But I think there's that element, like, I mean, this industry, we've been building houses forever. There's just so much longevity in this. Yeah. I think it's there's a lot that's being done to attract people, and I think there's just that element of we've got like a generation of being convinced that working in an office is a good idea. And as far as the industry goes, I mean, you're outdoors, you're active, you're working with various people, all that kind of thing. I mean, a lot of these trades and stuff, and again, I hate the stigma, like, you talk to carpenters and you see the art of what they're doing. It's
a great skill.
It's phenomenal skill. And the cool thing about it is that you can travel.
Yeah.
I know guys who have been carpenters and stuff, and they've travelled all over the world, literally as carpenters. One of the guys I know, he's a carpenter. He's travelled, but he's worked in various countries. He's been through Europe, and he's taken his surfboard as well, and he's been able to work and surf his way around the place and earn money, and that stuff's cool.
Yeah.
So it's, I think it's kind of understanding that possibility, and maybe sometimes our industry isn't good enough at selling it. But I mean, I look and I go, I think it's cool.
Well, I was an electrician, and that's how I got into this country as an electrician. I've still got my licence now. I don't do any work, unfortunately, but I do miss it. Yeah. Every time I walk past a building site and there's a big apartment block getting built just around the corner, I always stop and just have a glance at it. And my wife sometimes goes to me, "You wish you were on there, don't you?" And I do, because I miss it. Yeah. I miss using my hands. Like, I am not built to be sat behind a desk tapping on a keyboard all day.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love being on site, and the banter out there is really good.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you could have your radio going as well, that was even better.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and the camaraderie in this industry is phenomenal. I mean, there's obviously a mental health and all that kind of thing, especially because it's male dominated and that, but the banter out on site, it's fun. And I think at the same time, like, one thing I've always loved about what we do is at the end of it, you physically can walk past and see you've produced something. You haven't just charged for time or something you don't feel like you can see. Like, you've actually got something that's now standing there. And I think that's, I mean, I've had someone say to me before, like, I find builders arrogant. Why are they so arrogant? And I'm like, I think they're arrogant because I think we literally have the best job in the world. So, we're pretty smug because we think what we do is so cool.
You get to stand back and actually admire your craftsmanship, don't you?
Yeah.
And, like, I built that. I physically took that from what it was. And even there's something about renovations. Me and my wife love doing renovations.
Yeah.
There's something about getting the ugly duckling and bringing it back to life.
Oh, my wife and I, our first place, it was built like in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a bit naff in some spots, but we did a reno on it, and it was funny because I remember my friends sort of started coming around and seeing more the finished product, and they're like, I can't believe this is the same house. Yeah. And it wasn't until we actually put it on the market and I found the original photos of when we bought it and compared them to what we'd done to it. I was like, yeah, wow, we've transformed this place to be more contemporary in a cool way. And that's the thing, and there's so much choice with what we can do. So you kind of get given this creative license to do stuff that's on trend or not on trend. And, it's, I love, like, I mean, there's a lot of competition in this industry. I love what we do, but I also love what some of my competitors do. And, we had the housing awards the other night. You see some of the houses, and, we're lucky we won some awards, but you see some of the other builders and what they're doing is when you go, oh, I'd love to build that. That's a cool house. Yeah. And I also like when I see people coming into some of the homes and we use products and materials like tiles or timber or whatever, where they actually go up and they physically, like they touch it, like they're drawn to wanting to interact with the product. And it's because it's quite tactile, and I think that's the pretty cool thing, and that's why this industry is always interesting, because it's always changing. Colours that are, housing is a different type of fashion.
Last question, Jay, before we head off for the day. WA, we've got this love for double bricks.
Yeah.
For years we've built in double bricks, which is a good thing because we've got some really sturdy houses out there. Are you seeing a change in construction methodology? Are you seeing people liking timber or steel or hemp's coming out there now as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I think when I finished school and university and that, my first job was actually at Midland Brick. So I very much sort of saw the knock, double brick type of thing. And it's funny because I sort of say, people go, oh, what's with the brick thing? I say, well, from when you're a baby, you're pretty much being drilled into you because you hear the story of the three little pigs. And so you've already got this perception, but it's definitely changed. And I think there's always going to be a place for brick. It's definitely a great product. There's no denying that.
Solid as is.
It's absolutely solid. Yeah. But with your timber, your steel, it adds a different level of construction, whether it could be speed, cost, but even just in what you can do in the design. There are things you just can't do with brick. And that's the beauty of timber and steel and those lightweight types products. I think, the perception's changed. I mean, I have been in a home before, and a framed home, and it was a really cool home. If we hadn't have told people it was brick, a lot of people would have known unless they'd knocked on the wall. And which was, great marketing when they did that, because I don't know why people would walk around their house just knocking it. I remember this couple coming in stuff and they said, oh, we've got young kids and we're really worried that one of our kids is going to go through the wall. And I said, I'm probably more worried about what your kids are doing, let alone your house. Like, why are your kids running into the wall like that? And it's not like that, but where it's funny, we're the anomaly. Globally, most are building framed with a bit of brick, whereas we just love it. And there are some really cool lightweight type products that are out there, which architecturally, visually, James Hardie have some phenomenal like board products and stuff that come out. Hempcrete is cool. I haven't personally been able to build, but I've seen a bit of stuff with it. I do find it funny because every now and again you get people to come up and they kind of give you this look like, do you build in hempcrete? And you said, like, I feel like you want to build in hempcrete for the wrong reason. But it's that whole thing of like, you've got all these different, I mean, I have to admit, probably about a year ago, I was sort of looking around in like public car parks and stuff and seeing all the face masks everywhere. And I was thinking, can we build houses out of face masks? I feel like this could be a good recycling strategy because there's an abundance of these.
They're just all over the floor, weren't there, at one point?
Oh, at one point I couldn't get timber, but I had no problems getting face masks anywhere. And but I think, so you got these sort of different materials, and that will partially be driven by cost, speed, all that kind of thing, and also the look. But we've definitely seen, especially in the last few years, timber and framing in general just make quite large inroads into the construction methodology that people are using. And I think some of those perceptions people did have kind of like disappeared a bit. And we also tend to say to our team, like, I mean, don't overthink it too much. I don't walk into a suit store and ask the person, the first question is, oh, what's this suit made of? Generally, I'll walk into a store and I'll go, does it look good? Does it look good on me? Do I like it? Can I afford it? Can I have it now? And also, so I think from our point of view, we'll sort of joke internally and say the way you sell framing or the way you sell brick or whatever, you don't talk about it. It's for most people, they just want to see, like, I like the look of this, I can afford it. And then they'll sort of tend to ask some of those questions later, unless it really, really matters to them. But, I mean, no, thermal properties, everything like that, you still get the benefit with framing.
Yeah. Jay, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, mate. We've ticking on to 60 minutes there.
Oh, wow.
We've gone on.
Yeah.
We've gone on. Before we go, what's your favourite quote that you like to go by?
Yeah, it's probably a quote that's been done to death, but I've always loved the one by Maya Angelou, which is people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never get how you make them feel. And I've always loved it just because I think so many times I've been in all sorts of different interactions with people in, whether it's in restaurants or in construction, whatever it could be. If you're around people that make you feel good, it feels good. So to me, I think that's something that we try to bring into our organisation every day as well, is that whole thing of just having fun and enjoying yourself and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of that's my quote. We
could probably record a podcast just on that quote, I think.
Yeah.
Jay, thank you very much for going on the podcast.
No, thank you very much for having me. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.